Welcome to LabCast, a podcast about the medical laboratory science profession, brought to you by MedLab Convo. To get notified once we drop an episode, you can do well to subscribe to all our social media platforms at MedLab Convo. For questions, feedbacks, and shout-outs, you can do well to send a mail to at medlabconvolabcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.
Every year, fresh MLS graduates step into clinical laboratories across the country, wide-eyed, wearing crisp white coats with brand new logbooks, expecting supervised training. But if you ever found yourself in the critical bench during a chaotic night shift, making split-second diagnostics decisions as the lowest paid person in the room, the whole facade unravels completely. It makes you wonder, where does genuine mentorship end and where does running a lab on cheap training labor begin? That is the gray area we're exploring today on Interns or Instruments, the hidden exploitation in medical labs. Are we actually training the next generation for global standards, or are we just using them as extra hands to keep understaffed facilities from falling apart? Praise, and here with my co-host, Jesutomisin.
Hello, everyone.
Joining us in the studio to share their first-hand experiences are MLS Chubi
Hello, everybody.
and MLS Kehinde.
Hello, everyone.
They are two medical laboratory scientists who recently concluded their 12-month internship marathon. Welcome to LabCast, guys, and congratulations on making it through. Before we look at what happens inside the lab, we have to talk about how people get there, because the journey starts long before you ever pick a pipette.
Yeah, so now, this is going to be an interesting episode. Trust me, guys. Starting with securing an internship placement to UMLS Kehinde, looking back at the journey of recruitment process and securing an internship placement, the traveling, multiple examinations and interviews, the prolonged waiting. For me, I had to wait for like a year. I don't know how long it was for you. So how much of landing an MLS internship today relies on the merits versus personal networking or connections?
Okay. I would say 10%, 10% are on merit, and the rest are mostly based on connection. I would say based on um payment. Though I've heard a lot about, I've heard people say they pay facilities to get internship placement. Well, I'll still say most of the facilities still take interns based on merit.
Thank you so much. I know, yeah, it's different face, different different stroke for different folks, right? Like, yeah, but thank you so much for sharing your part in this. So diving also into the daily grind and workload after securing the internship, after a lot of sweat and blood. To you, MLS Kehinde, once again, from your experience, where do you draw the line between learning the ropes through basic routine tasks and being handed heavy workload that actually belongs to a full-time staff but is being pushed over to you? So how do you handle this kind of situation?
Um, okay, I had an experience like that while I was working. I I think it was in microbiology lab. I won't really blame them because they were actually short-staffed, but in just two people in the whole department. So she was speaking during the day, and I was the one on call, the scientist on call. I've been at work from 8 a.m. and I have to stay see 4 p.m. the next day. So the workload for the evening was just on me. Next morning, I had to tell the scientist it's quite much, and I don't think I'll be able to continue. So I'll say that when the stress is too much, you speak out, you tell your shifts, and you tell them you cannot continue, or just express yourself respectfully. Tell them the workload is too much and you will not be able to do. You can give them like alternative ways to go about it. Thank you.
Wow, I can imagine the stress you went through, MLS Kenny, having to be on call in microbiology lab where there is still call up again, follow up again to do for those organisms. That can really be stressful. Now, this question is to MLS Chubi. In a typical hospital laboratory, do you feel comfortable asking questions or suggesting modern evidence based approaches? Maybe there's already a standard operating procedure that the head of the lab sets in place, but you have something else, like something different, and you're thinking, oh, can we try this? Can we try that? Do you feel comfortable asking those questions on evidence based approaches?
Okay, so if I get the question right, do I feel comfortable asking question or suggesting modern evidence-based approaches in a typical hospital lab setting? Well, if it was a typical hospital lab setting, I don't think so. However, I did my internship at a private laboratory. So it wasn't a hospital laboratory, it was a private but a reference laboratory. And I absolutely felt comfortable asking questions and suggesting um modern evidence-based approaches. And in fact, much of their processes in the facility I did my internship were automated and they were already modern and evidence-based. So instead of even suggesting, I mostly just learned and asked questions. Oh, I asked a lot of questions. They used to call me professor because I used to ask a lot of questions. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, MLS Truby. Seems like you really enjoyed your stay at that private lab. Now, exploring the training balance, if this is still to MLS Truby, if interns were pulled out of your former private laboratory for a week, do you think the lab would still function smoothly? And are interns genuinely being trained or are they being used as a buffer for staffing shortages?
Okay, so I 100% think they would completely function without interns because, in fact, we were the very first cohort of interns that they had ever taken. So this was an establishment that had existed for 20 years. Like they did their 20-year anniversary in 2024, and then they started taking in interns in 2025. So definitely they will cope without interns. Whether they were interns or not, they would function very much smoothly. And where I did my internship, we were genuinely being trained. There was no way we could necessarily be used as buffer for shortages because, I mean, there's a reason you're an intern and there's a reason that person is a staff. That person who is a staff has a vast portfolio of experiences that you as an intern cannot have. So it was practically impossible to necessarily use us as a buffer for staffing shortages. There was a point where there was an issue of staff shortages and interns mostly just replaced or acted as a buffer in more of running samples, but nothing too intricate. They were just normal routine tasks. So yeah.
Wow, you guys really enjoyed your internship period. I mean, these are sweet, sweet experience. No bitter taste yet. This is wonderful, really. This is really wonderful. I love your responses. To you, MLS Kehinde, do you find yourself spending a lot of time on manual repetitive tasks because the facility's automated system is either not working properly or they are not being fully used? And as a result, was your training more about improvising and managing a resource limited environment rather than the globally standardized diagnostic practice?
Okay, thank you very much. I would say that not necessarily. We the facility where I trained, we actually did more of manual work than automation. For chemical pathology, the year I did my internship, that was the year the machine sport. So we had to run chemistry analysis manually. You can imagine the stress and everything. But this is one thing I really admire about the staffs there, machines. They make us like research more on specialized tests that we could not do at the moment. We research on that, and every week we come back to present. They open the floor for us to ask questions. They explain to us, tell us the principle behind those machines. Um, and everything we need to know about those machines. And I would say I am actually grateful for working manually too, because in my school, my uni days, we used where we did our training, our processing was a very big hospital, and it was mostly automated. So yeah, I got to experience manual testing. So I was actually grateful for that experience. But the staff still made sure that we are up to date. We were trained globally and not improvised. So if reagents are not enough, we stopped taking samples since they are working manually. And no manual reagents take while working using manual reagents, you use a whole lot of reagents to work on samples. Once the reagents are not enough, we just the scientists tell the technicians to put a hold on on sample collection. So we work on the samples we have. We don't improvise. So we were trained to meet global standard. Thank you.
Once again, beautiful experience, lovely experience. Um, to MLS Kehinde again, do you actually get the opportunity to learn how to troubleshoot and maintain complex laboratory analysis? Uh, and were you also taught how to load samples and run them, or you were just observing all through most of the internship here? Were you really hands-on with the equipment?
Yeah, for my internship, we had hands-on experience. The scientists made sure that we worked, and what they do was supervise us and validate our results. So for all departments, histopathology, chemical pathology, hematology, the blood banks, the microbiology, we all worked. We don't just observe. One thing they told us was that you're no longer in university where you have to report. I observed. You are no longer observing. You are now watching. Patients' life are now in your hands. You should learn to to work under pressure, so we were allowed to work. Oh, sorry.
That that reminds me of a situation whereby I was running a chemical analysis parameters, electrolytes to be precise, that year. So I don't know what happened with the equipment. It was giving funny results, and we observed that. And I called on my superior, and right there, he brought out some screwdrivers and everything like that, removed the whole thing. I was just observing, like, what? I was like, really?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Fascinates when they start troubleshooting. It was another level. I remember there was a time where our IC machine was bad, and they called the engineer to come and fix it, and he said it's going to take him a month to travel down to this place, to the facility, to work on that machine. The samples are already high enough, and we could just not leave those samples. All of the scientists just like went there, worked on the machine, and I made sure I sat down with him and I was asking him questions. How is this machine working? How does it aspirate? Once it gets to this place, what's it going to do? It's just amazing. And then I just feel like maybe I should just go into medical engineering. It was actually it was the first time I would see machines being opened up and worked on to troubleshoot. I was like, wow, that's actually very nice.
it's a wow experience for me as well. And that really taught me a lesson that it's not just about running the analysis alone, getting the results out. We must also know our equipment so that
Exactly.
when issues arise, even before we call on the biomedical engineer, we're able to fix it in the little way we can. Yeah, so that's beautiful. do you actually get the opportunity to also, I mean, you work in different departments, right? Like generally we have 4 major departments. So I'm very sure you're able to rotate around in your facility. So if this
Yes.
is the case, so what is the bench or are the benches that felt overwhelming for you in terms of the workload? And why do you think interns bear the brunt of this pressure in that particular bench?
I think this question, if you ask every medical laboratory sciences, the answer will be blood bank. Serology and blood bank. That's the department intense. It is with a lot of pressure. Oh Jesus. Working in blood bank, when you're on call, just know you are not sleeping. You are not sleeping at all. You're working. eh, It was actually very, very, very intense in blood banks. Um, and the pressure the patient's relative mounts on you. It's crazy. The doctors are there. They're standing by the door waiting for the blood. Patient relative are there crying. Maybe their patient had an accident and you need of urgent blood. It's a lot. Blood bank are it's actually a whole lot, and it drinks me particularly. I remember when I was still doing my rotation in blood banks. Once I am on call, once I get home, after taking my bath, I I just lay down on my bed till the next morning when I'm ready to go to work again. I hardly eat. It's stressed me mentally. Just at the old during that period, my face changed. My skin was dark that period. It was a whole lot. And I would say that for all blood bank, intern should not be left alone there. No matter how good the intern is, no matter how skilled the intern is, there should be a scientist there because I am not. It's the fact that this department there is no mistake is allowed. Mistake is not allowed when you're working on serology of the blood already in the blood bank or the blood of a donor is about to donate. There is no allowance for mistake. You're not allowed to make any mistake. I'm not saying for other departments you have to make mistake, but yeah, the pressure is more. I remember back in uni where doctors always come to hematology lab to shout, fight, and all that. Yes, I felt the pressure when I started working. When they have so the scientist on duty, probably my shift just stepped out. I'm like, yes, I am the scientist on duty. Something like this happened. Jesus, my mind has gone. What is it again? What happened? So the pressure is actually very, 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 very much. So I would say that in that department, just one intern and just one scientist is not enough in that department. Even if an intern is done with the serology, screening the patient, screening the blood, the scientist should be there to cross-examine what the intern has done to make sure um all the blood that is leaving the bank is safe and safe for the patients. Thank you.
Yeah, really, this really sparked a particular incident that happened in blood bank. It was an all-night shift. My eyes are swollen and all of that stuff. And there was a particular blood group stuff that I had to do for a patient, a chemo patient, actually. So I did the blood group. Blood group that is, you can say, probably more one of the most simplest techniques right there. And it came out as positive. Few hours later, I ran the sample again because I think a technician came to me and was like, the patient is saying that she's negative. And I was like, what? That's not possible. Guess what? The same sample, I ran it again and it was negative. Now, what saved me that morning was that one of my superiors was there and she didn't blame me or anything. It was not a blame game. She just guided me through, okay, maybe this is this. And we ran a lot of DIC, everything, all the techniques we can. We now later discovered that It happens in chemo patients whereby, they collect a lot of transfused blood that at a particular stage of the metastasis, their blood group resource factor can be changing. I made a research on that. I did presentation on that. And, it was a lovely discovery for me. I don't know if anybody has similar experience to accidentally discovering us from possible mistakes, stuff like that. So it was scary, but I'm glad that I was able to learn something significant from that experience. To MLS Chubi, how often did senior scientists actually take time to review difficult slides, complex cases, abnormal prints with you, or guide your professional development along the line? Or did they just blame you? Did they just fault you and scare you even more? Was that the kind of experience you had, or was it similar to mine? Would love to hear from you.
Hmm. All right. So, how often did scientists take time to review difficult, like complex cases? Very often. I told you part of my nicknames in where I did my internship was professor because I used to ask a lot of questions. And in that facility, questions were very, very much encouraged because it was even a very different facility from the usual. So the way they do things there is not the way things are done everywhere else. So it was very, very, very important that we asked questions and that we even, it's not just about asking questions, they used to take their time to teach. So there are times where the team lead will just come to the lab and say, okay, this person you are presenting today, and that scientist is going to do a presentation on a certain topic. And even when I was in microbiology department, I remember micro because micro is my favorite specialty. I'm a micro major, by the way. Shout out to all the micro majors. I think micro is the coolest department. I think micro is the coolest department in MLS. Anybody can argue it. They are free to argue with their computers. So in micro, if like almost every second, even when my hand was in quote strong on micro bench, there is no time where once I see an organism that I'm like, okay, what does this look like? I don't understand what I'm seeing because we used to use chromogenic agar in that facility. And for the agar, you would expect like when you see a certain color on that agar, it's almost certain that you are seeing a particular bacteria. So, for example, on that agar, E. coli is pink. So, once you're seeing pink colonies, you are actually seeing E. coli because the agar is designed to, differentiate that for you. But there are times where you now look at the agar place and I'm seeing pink, but I'm seeing the fact that this pink looks like it has a brown background. And I'm like, there was even a time where I remember seeing blue colonies with a pink background. Once, like anything I see that I'm not sure of, immediately I turn to look at the scientists. One of the scientists, shout out to Joshua. I was Joshua, please, I don't understand what this is. And Joshua will be like, okay, gram it, let's see. After we gram it, okay, do the biochemicals, which we used to actually do with an equipment. So we'll do the biochemicals with the equipment, and the next day I'll be like, okay, what organism was it? And it's like, well, it's not E. coli, maybe something like Serratia. I'm like, what? So there was really good allowance to ask questions in those departments. It was every time, it was every day, it was an everyday thing, it was a routine thing. You're asking questions every time, you're getting answers every time, and they guided my professional development very, very, very much. Thank you.
So to my micro major, this question is for you again. What are some of the coping mechanisms you developed to manage the physical and mental exhaustion that comes with the internship year? I know for one that micro can be very stressful, especially the follow-up. It's not just the call itself, it's the follow-up. And you can be pursuing an organism for like 2 weeks and you've still not gotten, because of the AST, the antimicrobial resistance that has to, it's going on in the economy now, in the country now. Pardon me. And it takes so many days for you to complete a particular work that you started since on Monday, you are finishing it on Sunday because of the follow-up. So I want to ask that what are some of the coping mechanisms you developed to manage the physical and mental exhaustion that comes with the internship here?
Coping mechanisms I developed. First of all, I did my internship in Lagos, right? And Lagos is a happening place, if you know what I'm saying. My coping mechanism were two, and it's almost two. It's the same thing, but two. Number one, church. So I used to go to a very, very vibrant church, and praise and worship was always very mad. I remember telling my friends when we go to church, I'm always jumping and screaming. And I told her, you don't understand. This is like my only opportunity where I get to scream out all the stress of the week. So I used to go to church, and church used to help me. Church was a coping mechanism for me, my relationship with God, and everything was a coping mechanism for me. Number two, talking to my friends. I mean, internship is a new environment, and I get to meet new people. So actually talking to my friends, both my friends that I knew before internship and my fellow interns, because I and my fellow interns, we had a very beautiful camaraderie, right? Where it was almost like we're 10 and the 10 of us were close. So there's nowhere you would see us and we're not gisting, laughing. Like it's always fun being around them. So they were my coping mechanism too, because and we lived together. So we stayed in the same house and then we worked in the same place. So you can imagine that kind of environment, and it was not toxic at all. Everybody was just a wonderful person. So ranting to my other interns too was a coping mechanism. Shout out to all of them because I'm sure they would see this. It was a coping mechanism. Oh my god. And even being around them, the fact that somebody will share jokes and definitely make you laugh. Everybody's asking, oh my god, you're looking stressed, have you eaten? Or yeah, come and take food and eat. So that was another coping mechanism. And then my third was going places. Oh my god, all of them knew. Chubi used to walk around. I don't think it's almost like there were plenty places in Lagos I didn't get to explore in my defense. But according to them, I seem to be the person who went the most places because I was almost everywhere. There were days that I think, as far as going to trade fair, if you know how far trade fair is from Lagos mainland, I went all the way to trade fair. I went to the island. I just went on many outings. So those are my coping mechanisms.
There's something wrong here. Very sorry. So this is MLS Chubi. How do you navigate the transition from classroom theory and structured investing labs to the high pressure environment of a busy diagnostics facility?
Okay, thank you for that question once again. How I navigated that transition. I would say again, the facility where I interned that made that transition very easy for us because one of the things they told us when we got there was everything you know from school. Leave it at the door first of all, because this is an entirely new environment. Obviously, not everything, that's just an exaggeration, but and one thing they did that really helped was we had an onboarding before we started and bench work. We had an onboarding. On that onboarding, all the team leads from every department where we would intern at, or even every department that was necessary for the functioning of the company, all of them came and taught us the things that they did in their department and what to expect. So we already had theoretical knowledge. Both classroom knowledge was there, the basics were there, then their own working principle. And another thing was the fact that my posting started at the quality assurance department. Starting posting at QAD meant that I read SOPs. Oh my God, I read a lot of SOPs and even ISO 15189, like the SOP regarding ISO 15189. I read it completely. I read QC SOPs. So starting my posting there was already should I say, I already was reading the theoretical aspects of the specifics of a diagnostic lab as opposed to, school and all. So I already had theoretical knowledge of a lot of what was going on the bench in that facility. So transitioning now to the bench was no longer a case of they just threw me from school onto the bench. No, from school, I did an onboarding in that facility. And then I still went through quality assurance department before I started. So I had the theoretical knowledge, at least the basics, the foundation needed to transition from school to the bench before I even started the bench work itself. So it wasn't so difficult. If anything, when I was reading some of the SOPs, I remember I was feeling so confused. But working on the bench was like a eureka moment for me. Like, oh my God, yes, this is what they said in that SOP. And I get to practice it live. So it was more of fun for me transitioning because there was a soft landing for my own transition. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Nah, I said the reason why they call you professor in your facility. You read them and you were able to, see them play out in real time. That's beautiful. Now, this question is to MLS Kehinde. Did this year-long experience strengthen your passion for laboratory medicine, or did it make you start exploring alternative career paths, take transitions, or relocation opportunities? Because for me, during my own, internship here, after the whole call, especially hematology call, and 8 to 5, I remember some of my colleagues saying, bench work is not for me. I don't think I can do MLS. I'm going to transfer into something else. I'm doing coding. I'm planning on, relocating. So I want to ask for you, did it strengthen your passion for laboratory medicine, or did it just make you start, exploring alternative career paths, tech transitions, or relocation opportunities?
One thing I would say is that the actual is that I am trying out of that career path. The sweet thing about MLS is that MLS is not restricted to just bench work. MLS is actually very good. I had a very, very bad experience in the hospital sector. The way MLS is being treated, no, it's not actually nice. And I'm not going to call other professions. I am not going to call them out. But the way MLS is being treated in the hospital is really not nice. It's not encouraging. The burnout, the fact that we are not recognized enough. And when you ask other people, they feel like we just sit down there and not do, and we don't do anything. It's crazy. It is annoying. I don't want to bring that annoyance to bench work. So with that annoyance, I am going to direct that passion into something else. Even if I am going to practice bench work, is that will be that will be a specialist. I am going to be a specialist in that particular test. So it's not just going to be just general bench work. It's going to be a specialized test rather. So that's just it. Right now. So I am learning product design and data analysis. So that's just it. The thing is, I am not going to leave MLS generally. Just going to be another aspect of biomedical science. So that's just the main thing.
Texas. Texas. Okay, now we are with the manifestation. We are with the manifestation. So, you were saying that you want to direct the passion into other areas, MLS is broad and this. There is something you can also direct that passion or anger towards, which is proposal, suggestion. So we have council. So if you could propose one major regulatory or policy change to the Medical Laboratory Science Council of Nigeria regarding internship guidelines, what would it be? MLS Chubi.
Oh, my facility where I did my internship, for example, that was the place where I experienced the least stress. And it was so ironic to me. For other facilities, I remember there was a facility that I went to submit documents for internship. Here's what they asked for. They asked us to print 15 copies each of all our documents and spiral bind them and come and submit. I spent over 30K. And I'm wondering why. For these documents that you people are going to throw away, you're even adding to the waste that is going into the environment. You people throw away the paper. At least paper is biodegradable. How about the plastics that we used for binding the documents? We're having climate change issues. We're having all these issues. Yet, some people are busy generating problems for us for needless. Because why do you need 15 documents of mine for me to apply to internship placement? Is it that 15 people are going to review it and there is no system for which those documents should be adequately transferred? The waste of money, the risking of lives, because I'm on the road traveling to different places to go and write internship exam when this thing can literally just be done online. The facility that I ended up doing my internship, the only documents they requested, first of all, it was completely online. Go to our website, just put in your details, your name, your date of graduation or like the year of graduation. The only documents requested were CV and then cover letter, which was optional. That was literally just it. After that, they shared us link for the assessment. We got the link for the assessment. We wrote the exam online. mind you, everything was completely online. There were caveats in place to ensure that nobody is doing examination malpractice. Your camera must be on throughout. The moment they suspect any foul play, you'll be kicked off the call. And that was how I wrote the exam. And in fact, there were breaking points in between. So I started my exam. I think I started my exam on the Monday evening, and I completed it on Tuesday morning because I could take a break in between the exam and come and continue it later, as long as I did not exceed the deadline of the exam, which was, I think, that Tuesday evening. All right. So after writing the exam, I was part of the people that scored the best on the exam. And that was the other thing too. In case people are thinking there are no facilities that take by merit. The facility where I did my internship, it was strictly by merit. There was nobody that got in that did not get extremely crazy scores on the assessment. And then the assessment questions were not MLS questions because I wrote professional exam. Why are you asking me the meaning of PCV? Why are you asking me the plates that I used in microbiology? That's how I graduated because I wrote that in exam already. So, like, just saying this thing, what color is anti-Sera A? That's weird because anti-Sera A might not be blue in all facilities. Some facilities might have a different color for anti-Sera A. So, like, those kind of needless, unnecessary questions that somebody will waste money, waste their time, risk their lives to come and write. As opposed to my own facility where the questions they asked were reasonable questions for somebody who is, aspiring to work in a global organization. Because you're going to work in like a company or something and they're training you for such that they're checking your ability for soft skills, because now we're seeing that it's soft skills that really matter in the job market. Nobody cares about the fact that you know which blood plates are used for swab stick. Like, nobody really cares about that because you wrote professional exam for a reason again. So asking those questions about soft skills, that's like the real test. That's the real thing that really matters. Can you communicate properly? Can you think critically? Can you solve problems on the spot as they arise? These were questions they asked us. I think they just asked us like 3 or 4 MLS related questions. And when we got there, they told us, you already did that in school. We know you know it. These are the things that matter in this place. When we got the offer, again, it was online. It was when we got the offer that Nan told us, when you resume, these are the documents you will now bring. No unnecessary printing documents up and down that will end up in a dumping site. And my God, like, these things can be done online. You can literally just set up a Google Meet call and interview all the people that you want to interview. It is much less stressful than gathering thousands of people who are competing for 25 positions. How many people have wasted money? How many of their parents have wasted money? How many of them have risked their lives? Thank God that I've not heard any news of somebody having accident coming back from writing an internship exam. But I'm quite certain that is a likely possibility. It's just not something that we hear every day. So these are the issues. MLSC should centralize internship. Internship application should be online. There's no reason why somebody should come and print 15 documents and spiral bind the 15 documents to submit to a facility. It makes no sense. Economically, logically, there's no reason. So she has said it all, really.
One thing I want to say that MLS should do is that MLS is not just about the hospital.
Yeah.
Can internship be outside the hospital? Because I am back in school, I did genomics. Why am I not posted to a genome facility, a bioinformatics facility? I did public health in school. Why am I not posted to facilities where I can train? Then ISN, why am I not posted there to train? I think these are the things instead of, because logically a facility cannot, especially a federal hospital, either a federal, a state, or a private, they cannot take. There is a maximum they can take. They cannot take more than 20. Maximum is 20 they can take in each facility, and the number of graduates we have each year.
Thousands.
Hundreds of thousands of people are graduating each year. So instead of just limiting us to bench work, there are other places where we can do our internship. That is, if they allow people to express themselves. I want to do my internship in a facility like this. this is where I want to do my internship. I don't want to do bench work. I want to do my internship in this facility. And it's going to reduce the years which people are waiting to get internship placements. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Like, I just also even wanted to add to what she said. Someone like MLSCN, there should be space for interns to work in MLSCN. Because what if my interest is in policy? What if my interest is in regulation? But now, because I graduated from MLS, and the crazy thing is they teach us in school, MLS is diverse, MLS is vast. You can work here, you can work here. But we don't know how to work there because we don't have the foundational training in those other fields. Much of what we're doing is MLS, right? Is medical laboratory science. So they are teaching us all the only things about, like, most of what we do in school is bench work. But they also teach us about entrepreneurship. People should be able to intern in facilities like that. People should be able to intern in food production companies because they need lab scientists for that. People should be able to intern with places like NAFDAC because NAFDAC also need laboratory scientists. People should be able to intern at like places where they have veterinary medicine. There are people that are interested in running tests for animals. So again, yes, MLS posting should not just be internship should not just be in hospital labs or private labs alone. Other facilities should be open up to med lab scientists to intern at. Thank you.
I can see policy makers here. Change
Like,
makers.
like,
The rant is not for it's not for nothing. Yeah, this is lovely. Like I said, you can direct that passion to proposal. To be honest, if we can gear towards this, the change we want can be initiated, really. How? It's looking like. Chris, do you have anything to say?
I'm actually wowed with the way MS Kenny and MS Chubi was talking. I'm so wowed. The policy the proposals they were talking about NAFDAC, different kind of things. Like, I'm so wowed, really, really, really. In fact, I didn't even think in that direction until when they said it right now.
These are brilliant minds. These are really brilliant minds. Look at it. Nigerian youth are not lazy. We don't lack ideas. We don't lack generation of ideas. It's just we need people to listen to us and help implement these ideas. That's just the basic fact. So it's looking like we should not finish this discussion.
Real.
We should not
Like,
finish this discussion. So much to really tackle, but I think we've really covered a lot of aspects and it is totally relatable to our listeners out there. So to wrap things up on this episode, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, MLS Kehinde. Thank you so much, MLS Chubi, for accepting our invite. You really did justice to this topic and discussion. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of LabCast. We hope this conversation shed light on the realities many laboratory interns what they are facing and spark meaningful reflection on training, mentorship, and workplace ethics in healthcare system. If you enjoyed this episode, which I'm very sure you did, please ensure to subscribe and stay connected for more honest conversation on healthcare, professional growth, and the challenges shaping the medical laboratory profession. You can send us email at medlabconvo@gmail.com. We would love to hear your thoughts and feedback and learn more about your journey as well. Don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms at medlabconvo. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious. Bye for now.